Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, are you struggling to build a high-performing team and are not quite sure what you're doing wrong? Well, today, my guest co-host, Roger Jowett, former Motion Asia Pacific CEO and current Brainiact mascot franchise partner, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Steve Sallis. Steve is the founder of Solutions Mindset and is an executive mindset coach who supports and helps create elite teams in the workplace. He excels as a leadership mentor, trainer, keynote speaker, and elite development mentor in business and elite sports. Steve is here today to teach us all about the power of mindset and how we can all build high-performing teams. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Natalie, Roger, thank you for having me. We've got lots to discuss today, I'm sure. So, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Steve. It is going to be we have a lot to ask you. But before we do, we've got to ask you the two most difficult questions, which are our two fun questions. And the first one we have prepared for you is, what is your favorite sport and why?
It should be football, shouldn't it? Because I work in professional football. But I'm going to left field it and say golf. Absolutely obsessed with golf. Just trying to work my handicap down. So, golf is the thing that relaxes me the most.
I did not expect that. I almost knew what the answer was going to be with football.
Yeah, no, definitely golf.
Wow, fantastic. All right, and what is the most adventurous thing you've ever done or would like to do?
Do you know what? I'm speaking to people down under, of course, and an eclectic part of the world as well. But I'm terrible in aeroplanes. So my trip to Brisbane on the east coast of Australia was probably the best thing I've ever done. Went up to Fraser Island, down to Byron Bay, and had some fantastic times in Australia really all these years ago. So I'm not the best on planes. If you get me on a plane, which is long haul, that's probably my biggest achievement, everyone.
And that is a long flight, right?
Mission. And I'm obviously 6 foot, so sitting on those little seats is no good for me.
Oh, that's great. And Steve, look, I gave a bit of an intro to you at the beginning, but there is so much more to Steve Sallis. Can you share with our audience who you are, a bit about your background, your career, and of course, your business?
Yeah, well, we spoke off air about sort of how I ended up doing what I'm doing. It's important to know to your listeners that my super strengths, and it's a great bit of language for you to start with, come from working in South London schools for 20 years. So I worked in some of the toughest environments in the UK and helped, really poverty-stricken kids and dysfunctional kids, bless them, become less dysfunctional and achieve and aspire to greatness in the world. So those super strengths really. Before that, I called myself a failed football player. So anyway, after that, I did my degree in physical education in Greenwich in South London, and then I've been in that area ever since, been there 25 years now. So was a school leader for many years, got a few promotions and was going to be a head teacher. And then talk about fate, an ex-pupil texts me. I've taught 40,000 pupils in South London. They normally shout at me out their white vans and stuff these days. And then, so an ex-pupil texted me and told me about a job at a professional football club called Millwall in South London. And then where Tim Cahill played, actually, one of the great Australian players. And I literally moved from school strategic sort of an operational skill set into pro football. And then had an opportunity to work for national football team England under 15s for 4 seasons. So it's all gone a little bit crazy. And then since then I've just started a business, and Solutions Mindset genuinely came about when I was so fed up with teachers knocking on my door with problems. I used to have a big A1 piece of paper on my door saying, "Hi everybody, I hope you've had a great day. Please into my office with a solution, not a problem." That's the kids and the staff. So that solutions-based approach has always been in my head, and I suppose that I'm so proud of my business name really, because it really is what it says on the tin. So just trying to, if you give love, you get love type behaviour, and if you're positive and you hang around positive people, law of attraction type stuff, then we're probably more likely to have a more enhanced life.
Oh, that's brilliant. I had to make note of that. Enter my office with a solution, not a problem. It's the first I've heard of that one. What a brilliant one, right, Roger?
Yeah, no, I have used it.
Oh, you have?
It can wear you out when people come to you just with problems, and the best people who work for a leader are those who just need a bit of help to weigh up the options that they already have in their mind to go the right way. That's what a true leader, I think, adds value to get those decisions over the line. So yeah, but it can grind you down if it's just problems all day.
Yeah, and in South London schools, we're dealing with serious poverty. So you're just having to, when I talk about we, not me in my book, I say it so sincerely because the soldiers, the teaching assistants, like everyone's adding value. So I think like when we talk about all the posh stuff in leadership, like flat hierarchies, the best businesses I've worked in just have a flatter hierarchy. I think the challenge with hierarchy comes when businesses become so big that you need, proper line management. But anyway, that's probably a conversation for later in the pod.
You mentioned, Steve, super strengths. So if we were to ask you about these super strengths, what do you believe are the super strengths that attribute to great leaders, especially now?
Well, I'm going to chuck a little bit of a caveat back to you about character or caliber. So I talk about this in my corporate work quite a lot. What's more important, one's character or caliber? But I think in the UK, I've been on a lot of podcasts over here. We're obsessed with caliber, right? It's just an obsession. And wouldn't it be brilliant if there was an A-level degree or a GCSE in something called character development? But there isn't, doesn't exist. So wouldn't it be brilliant if there was a GCSE and A-level and a degree in entrepreneurialism? But there isn't, doesn't exist. So we've got a sort of institutionalized education system going on at the moment, which is prehistoric, to be honest. It's 120 years old. Kids are still sitting in chairs for 6 hours a day and we're expecting them to learn stuff. And I suppose that what's super strengths is subject knowledge for me. People say I'm a motivational speaker, Natalie. I find it quite insulting, actually, because I think, well, I've got 25 years of knowledge as well. And the motivation bit just comes from, I think, common sense. Like, who wants to listen to a boring school teacher? So, you've got to have a bit of a personality, I think, to be able to get the best out of people. So I think character's really important, but I think caliber's huge because it's like me being on a podcast with nothing to share, isn't it? Like, that would be a bit weird. And me just say, be positive. But some people, they need the, the tools to be able to know how to be successful.
Yeah, so look, it's definitely really interesting because we know you're a mindset coach. So, for everyone listening here, when we talk about mindset, we need to have a healthy mindset, especially in leadership roles, because it's tough to be a leader. We even had that discussion off air. For those leaders listening, business owners, corporate leaders, whoever you are, how can leaders actually develop a growth mindset to actually get through those challenging times at work, whether it's personal work, as a business owner running a team? Is there a structure or anything that we need to go through to develop that? Is there exercises, or is it common sense, like you said?
Well, a bit of everything, really. If I go into support some businesses, the first thing I'll do is a gap audit. So looking at super strengths of the business, a RAG rating, we call it in schools, Natalie. Everything I've taken is from education. So a RAG rating is just the red, amber, green, just a traffic light system. Green's what the super strengths of the business, amber's what the areas of development, and red's what the serious weaknesses. And when I work with CEOs, because I'm not obviously a specialist in banking or whatever, we make it very bespoke. So we create our own RAG rating. Sometimes that links to performance management. Sometimes it's already available in documentation. That can become really bespoke to the businesses. And, I've been working with media companies, I'm working with recruitment companies. So that would be the first thing I'd say is do a gap audit. Then I think really looking at super strengths of people is the first thing. Is what are people with X factor traits? What are their things that they're 10 out of 10 at, and making sure we're watertight and aligned on that. And then really sort of looking at, I suppose, the endpoint for certain businesses, profit and loss. Does this impact profit and loss? I've come from education where we don't ever talk about profit and loss. We just talk about people development. But I think with people development, that's primary and profit and loss is secondary. But a lot of businesses are getting it the wrong way around. So, not rocket science, is it? A happy person outside of work is going to be a happy person inside of work. And how can we create a we, not me culture, which basically just enhances everyone's experiences of, I don't say work, of life. So, loads of little nuggets, but the gap audit will be step one.
Yeah. And I think, Steve, there's this direct correlation between a happy workforce and a business that's performing. And do you find that, leaders are nervous of getting honest feedback from their employees? Have you seen challenges in that regard?
Yeah, Roger, we talked off air, didn't we, about exit interviews. So I think it comes down to, first thing is your baseline, how good your EQ, your emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is definitely changing in the workplace. There's more awareness of it. But I've just said to 2 CEOs in the last month, Roger, why have we not got self-awareness on the agenda every week? And keep having the discussion around self-awareness, and to keep having discussion about empathy and high EQ, because I think if we don't get that as a baseline behaviour, and listen, we're 3 experienced people on the call, we know there's highly dysfunctional people in every job in every part of the world. Your first baseline bit of work is self-awareness, and my super strengths in business I've got some unbelievable self-awareness content where we're really poor colleagues, not in a rude way, I've got nowhere to go anymore. They're stuck. Oh, wow, God, almost like my content really ostracizes people on themselves. So we're really looking at, I do believe that research-led approach is appropriate, because then it gets away from my opinion over facts type stuff, and trying to be as objective as we can about decisions that we make with business change.
Yeah, I think I've got a bit of a theory about the leader being vulnerable, and how important that is, because the leader never has all the answers, and the leader should be seeking for solutions from deep in the business, front line, any middle management, and not pretend to have all the answers all the time. And I've seen too many leaders that don't tap into the vast resources that they're employing to help improve a business.
And that goes back to high EQ again, Roger, because if you show vulnerability, let's say I say to you, I don't mind showing my vulnerability. My parents splitting up at 14 was what we call a mild trauma. Okay, so that's definitely affected me into adulthood. But if you show vulnerability to someone with low EQ, Roger, they see you as weak, right? So that's the challenge that we've got, is that vulnerability can only be shared with people with high EQ, because the high EQ people get it, right? Whereas low EQ will be down the pub saying, "Oh, ha ha, guess what happened to Steve today?" And no, that's not funny, mate. So yeah, I think that the high EQ, the self-awareness and the vulnerability factor, I think you're 100% correct on the vulnerability. But in order to get vulnerability, we've got to give vulnerability. At the same time, we need to be having more discussions, building that house and saying, look, let's talk about EQ, not about profit and loss, not about process. Because if we don't get those relationships right, nothing's going to work anyway.
So, Steve, for those business owners that are listening in that really struggle to be vulnerable, they've put up these barriers, they don't know how to. Have you got any techniques on how they can break that down? Because obviously they want to bring their team in on the journey with them. But if they're putting up these walls and not being empathetic and vulnerable, it's tough. So have you got any techniques that you can share on how we can actually break that down?
Well, I'm definitely not a magic wand, Ali, so I can't, make people in all parts of the world and change lives. I always call myself in football Paul McKenna, who's like a hypnotist in England. And I say, look, I'm not Paul McKenna. I'm a very process-driven guy with lots of techniques and knowledge. So I'm not just going to magic your mind up. So, going into a business with, 2/3 of dysfunctional people, I definitely can't help that lot. But, it might be linked to recruitment and retention. Are you keeping your best staff? Are your recruitment processes right? Are you zooming out instead of zooming in? Are you asking for external support? Are you asking for a different lens on interview day? I'm really looking at the source of the problem rather than always reacting all the time, because a lot of companies are saying to me, "Oh, we're getting recruitment wrong." Well, first and foremost, keep hold of your good staff. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is what are your recruitment strategies? How good are your interview processes? And how rigorous are you with your interviews? And I'm not saying you want to get and be draconian on interview day and make people be fearful, but you want to be seen as as really rigorous on the day. So the people that you're interviewing, it's a 50-50 process, isn't it? Like you need to sell to them as well. So I think a lot of businesses get that wrong. You sit in a room and you're thinking, well, look, you might need me here. I don't necessarily need you. So yeah, just that mindfulness of getting that bit right. But again, going back to your actual question, I think more people need to be looking in the mirror, not out the window. Look at self-awareness and saying, look, where am I at in life, and what is my why for life? My why is just helping people. So My why's quite simple: get up every day, be positive, and try and be kind. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's quite a basic mantra, but be kind. So I don't think people always think like that, and they don't always behave like that. But my experience of child psychology is there's always a reason why people behave like they behave. Then they get to adulthood, and I'm writing this in my new book. Like, we have got to be empathetic sometimes about it, because sometimes they just don't know. They're adults, but they don't know. So, yeah, our job is to genuinely give them knowledge, and education is very powerful if we use it in the right way.
And can you talk to us a little bit about, learning from mistakes, accepting making mistakes? I think is a strength. None of us can get to perfection.
Yeah.
And how do we learn from mistakes?
But again, I think that comes down to EQ again, because if everyone's got high self-awareness and high EQ, then when someone makes a mistake, like, there's not crisis management, Roger, is there? There's like crisis management everywhere. Like, I've got businesses, people just crisis manage, but actually the people that crisis manage really internally are crisis, aren't they? They're not calm under pressure. I think people see, people do, right? Model the behavior that you want to see. So I think that it's very chicken and egg. Does culture create good people, or do people create good culture? It's a sort of rhetorical question, but I think it's more complex than that, because I think that there's not a magic wand. I think sometimes you've just got to be, it might be industry specific. For example, my friends in banking in London, it's ruthless, because no one really, unfortunately, I'm not labeling every bank here, but no one really cares. So I've come from education where like 99% of people really care. So, football again is quite ruthless. No one really cares. And I've gone into pro football, and I'm like one of the few caring people. And they're like, I've got 3 heads. Well, no, like, caring's like normal, everyone. Like, that's what we need to do. But, it's challenging. I think we have to be respectful of different industries, because it's not always, I call it the black, the white, and the grey. Like, everything isn't black and white. There's loads of grey. So I don't want to give you like a clinical answer on that and say it is, because I just don't think it's that straightforward. Yeah.
And Steve, just so the audience does understand, when we talk about self-awareness, what exactly are we talking about?
To simplify this, how you act, how you interact, and how you react. All right. So just awareness of how your actions, your behaviours, your vocabulary, your voice, your tonality, how you interact, how you connect with people, how well you listen, 2 ears, 1 mouth, that type of thing. And then how you react to scenarios. So work from Steve Peters on the chimp paradox, making sure we're emotional control, making sure we're aware of our emotions, making sure we're aware of our behaviours. And then, in a work context, Roger sort of mentioned it a bit earlier, but knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know, and then linking to an expert hires an expert. Because if you don't know something, go and employ someone that does that type of behaviour. So put your ego in the bin. Do you know what I mean? Just put your ego in the bin and go and get someone that's more knowledgeable than you.
That's a brilliant way to describe it. And what about, you mentioned listening just now as, part of self-awareness. Would you consider that a super strength of leaders, to be able to listen?
Do you know what, Natalie? I'm on a football conference next week, and it's about high performance in football. And I know that people can expect me to have all of these magic wands of, so-called magician work in football. And I'm going to say that professional football in England is as far away from high performance as you could possibly imagine. And everyone's going to go, what? And I'm going to go, 70% of people don't listen to anything that you say. Genuinely, like, no one listens, and we call it high performance. So yeah, listening is pure power. I mean, people just, obviously the cyclical nature. If I knew you, like even on this podcast today, people might interrupt each other, right? So I don't want to weird people out and say you can't interrupt someone, but it's those people that do it every day. Like, that's just weird. Like, just let me finish my sentence. So I was probably the nightmare middle manager in my business, in my school days, because if my line manager just interrupted me, I would just say to him, "Just can you let me finish my sentence, please?" So that might come across as a bit crass, but like managing your manager, like, oh, let me finish my sentence, because we've got this sort of autocratic process here where, you're what's my quote? I say people hear what they listen for and see what they look for, right? So just hear me out, and let's really become aligned. I say with alignment we create clarity, and misalignment we create chaos. So we can only be truly aligned with excellent listening.
Yeah, everything. What I love is that all the super strengths are not actually rocket science. Like we're talking about, you mentioned be positive, be kind, be empathetic, be vulnerable, listen. Like they're all things that we can all do. Regardless of this magic one that you keep saying that you can't wave, but they're all things that we can actually all be great leaders. And and yet people struggle to lead these days.
And Steve,
Roger, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was just going to ask you, I think we have these muscles that we don't always use. And I think there are breakthroughs where trying new things out is hard, high risk of failure, keep practicing. And importantly, I think, is getting the people around you who you have trust with, holding you accountable. Please tell me when I'm interrupting so I can try and do less of it. These kind of, it is the vulnerable, I need help without screaming, I need help. But I want to improve my leadership style in these areas. And I will need your help so I can build slow, steady progress, because you don't just flick a switch and start behaving differently, do you?
Yeah. And do you know what, Roger? In schools, we've got something called behavior for learning, right? And it's how behavior impacts learning. Right, and you could easily pick that up and put that into business. And that self-awareness is, I'll give you an example. I say to people, when I'm at my worst, just know that I still care about you. So that's in the back of people. Like if I'm a bit short with you, I still care about you. If I'm being a bit arsey, because I am sometimes, I'm still care about you. And that behavior for learning, how behavior impacts learning, is key. But I don't see many people having that conversation. But I think we're always going to go back to high EQ, low EQ. I think we're always going to go back to that. And if we don't just have that awareness, on performance management, I don't see emotional intelligence on there very often. So how can we keep having those conversations which create psychological safety? Natalie, I've only called myself mindset. My master's degree was in educational psychology and leadership, and everyone in football calls me a sports psychologist. So I can't call myself that because I haven't got a sports psychology qualification. So I've just sort of used the word mindset, really. But mindset is, Natalie, honestly, in my head, it's common sense. But I try to be well read. Like, why would I have a bad life when I can have a good life? The controllables for my life are that if I read stuff, I become more intelligent, or I become more wise, or I have more choice. I think I should share this. I failed all my GCSEs at school. So I'm not an actual academic. I got put in bottom set when I was in my first day of secondary school. And I went home to my mum, Natalie, and I said, Mum, am I thick? Genuine question. Mums love their sons, right? She said, no, son, you're not thick. And I said, well, I've just been put in bottom set at school. So linking actually to the business world, loads of people say about psychometric testing. I don't do psychometric testing. I've never done psychometric testing because I hate labels. I don't believe you're a red, blue, or green, or whatever it is, because you're a human being and you evolve and you grow and you're organic and you can improve, like with what you mentioned about growth mindset. So, yeah, listen, I've got my own style about people development, but some of the stuff I've got in my business content from my master's degree could blow psychometric testing out the water anyway. So I think, yeah.
Steve, I'm curious about this shift from maybe not enjoying reading to understanding the value of reading. I have a number of people I work with where I encourage them and I send them things to read, and I sense they have not been a reader for 20, 25 years, hardworking plumbers, electricians. And I think it's absolutely critical to just get them to read 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, because everyone has a little bit of curiosity in them. What is it that triggered you to start reading? What was it that nudged you?
Really good question. I don't know if you're familiar with this. In schools, kids are either good at English or good at maths. They're good at sciences and maths, or they're good at literacy and stuff like that. So I loved creative writing as a kid, Roger. So I was always just loved creative writing, just something I really enjoyed. I was a sports kid mad, but that was something I loved. And then when I did my degrees, I was so fed up with academic writing. And you've asked about reading, but I'm just going to go to literacy here.
I was going to go to writing next, but keep going.
Yeah, but I think my book was so therapeutic for me, educating football. And it was my experiences of school into pro sport. And not in a rude way, I'm battering pro football a little bit, but I'm also bigging up pro football and looking at the gaps between education and sport. And I've said quite confidently that education is miles ahead of professional football, right? In terms of its structure, its strategy, its processes, its ethical nature of people. But linking to the reading bit, I just don't want to be poor, Roger. This is a true story. My dad was a plumber, right? We weren't poor as a kid, but we were the upgrade family in the UK, right? We were, we had the crappy car to the next crappy car to the next crappy car. But it was, in our world, it was a great car because it was just the upgrade motor vehicle. But I just think my obsession with reading comes from almost a little bit of fear that I'm in control of my future within a lot of contexts. And I'm saying this to kids. I do a mindset project in schools as well, Natalie, called My Future Self. Just had it trademarked, actually. And will your future self thank you for decisions you make today? Now, we don't actually have to read in a book these days. We can read on Twitter or read online. So, I think the process of education can be, multitudinal, can't it? It doesn't just have to be narrow towards a book. It can just be, using social media, YouTube, all these aspects to upskill yourself to be a better person. So yeah, Roger, I think that we probably need to modernize, like not you, I'm not labeling you, but me, I need to modernize. I've got all my books up there, but maybe people don't learn like that anymore.
Yeah. And just shifting quickly to the writing, I mean, I would often encourage people to write, and this is probably an old style approach, to distill their thoughts. You can talk to yourself and bullshit and talk. When it comes down onto paper, it's usually getting clarity and shorter and something that you can work with a bit more. Do you have a view on the importance of writing things down at all?
Yeah, I think writing, I've had a couple of bouts of mental health in my life, which I'm again not afraid to admit. And actually what I learned about mental health, everyone, a lot of it's genetic. Unfortunately, the Sallis family haven't been given the genes, like everyone else has. So, when you manage that and you have to try and get your thoughts down with a little bit of personal CBT on yourself, your thoughts, emotions, behaviours. And actually what I've learned about CBT and cognitive behavioural therapy is, for me, what changes my thoughts and my emotions is my behaviour. And ready for this, everyone, that's getting in the gym. Yeah, because if I'm getting in the gym, if the behaviour of me getting in the gym, that will change my thoughts and emotions. I'm not the guy that can use CBT and just sit there and meditate and I've got to be out in the nature. I've got to be playing golf. I've got to be staying off alcohol. I've got to be in the gym, and I've got to be behaving in a way which is therefore affecting my brain science and my physiological science. And I know that about myself and my body. I know that if I'm not looking after myself, my mental health goes downhill.
Fascinating. Yeah.
It is, and there's no one size fits all solution, is there, Steve? And that's the thing. Everyone is different.
Yeah, and that's why, and Natalie, that's why in my business I don't tell anyone what to do, because I find it quite patronising. You go at school CPD, for example. I had 20 years of school teacher training. I can remember one person that was any good. They're telling you what to do, your environment, your kids, and that doesn't relate to me. So my world is like, here's a toolbox. Choose what you want, discard what you don't want. And making things really personally bespoke to all my clients. And actually, I'm linking this back to education again. There's a great word called differentiation. Differentiation means meeting the needs of all learners at all times. And again, I keep going back to education all the time. But when people say to me, "Oh, wow, you got 250,000 followers on Instagram," I go, "Yeah, because it's a place called school. It's knowledge. Everything I've got is lived experience." So I think, I cannot underestimate. And Roger's just said his son's in the South London school. I cannot underestimate how difficult and how mad an inner London school is. Or, by the way, clarify, any city in the world, because when you get cities, you get rich and poor, and that therefore socio-economic divide means we're dealing with gangs, we're dealing with knife crime. We're dealing with kids, Natalie, that hadn't had any breakfast, right? And we're having to provide breakfast clubs, for teenagers, because their mum and dad haven't got any money, right? And we're feeding them in the library at 7:30 in the morning every day. So that's in a city of London. So let's be, again, I suppose I feel like I'm spoiled by my experiences because I don't know. I'm working with some of the world's best athletes now, but I tell them all the time, like, humble every day.
That's the thing, when originally when I asked you, and this was off air, when I had asked, how did you go from teaching to becoming a mindset coach, with this business that you've got, you can clearly see that you've been doing it your whole career. As a teacher, that's the foundation for where you've just become now. Like, you're constantly helping people stay positive, having a healthy mindset. Yeah,
I don't think I'm necessarily. I'm just, honestly, I don't even think I'm that, Natalie. I'm just a guy on my journey. I don't see myself as that. I don't think it's like, I've had to pinch myself in the last couple of years. The High Performance podcast has had 14 million downloads, and I am the biggest no one on there. Let's clarify that. I came the week after Toto Wolff, who's the Mercedes team leader for Formula One. And then I came on and everyone's like, who's this guy? So and by the way, I don't have imposter syndrome. I've never had imposter syndrome. And do you know why? Because I'm back, and this isn't an arrogant thing at all, right? I don't mean it to come across. I back my skills so much because every day I got told whether I'm any good or I'm not. Because the kids, sorry to swear here, the kids say, sir, your lessons are shit, mate. Right? And when you're 21 and you're getting told by South London kids that your lessons are rubbish, you've got to upgrade very quickly. So in my business, I've got something called the downgrade. Who wants to be the downgrade podcast or the downgrade teacher or the downgrade architect? Right, so because everyone's had the best architect or the best teacher or the best podcast. So like, we've all got to be self-aware to go, oh my God, like, as if I want to be the downgrade teacher. So I fluked self-awareness because the kids would say, sir, and I'm going to his 50th tomorrow, he'll love this, Mr. Power's lessons are miles better than you, sir. So, when the kids are telling you the truth, but in middle class areas, the kids obviously probably brought up properly by mum and dad, so they wouldn't tell the teachers this truth. But yeah, the facts were that the kids helped me more than anything else. And don't get me wrong, it hurt me. I'm driving home and I'm hurt, right, on a Friday going, these kids don't rate me. But at the same time, it's the best thing that ever happened.
It's interesting, Natalie. I encourage some of my customers to involve their kids, around the dinner table, get some feedback from your kids, how your kids describe you, the business owner, the busy father, busy mother, etc. is very, very interesting. And I have a customer whose kids just did a video to help them recruit the next tradesman because they're short of labor like so many people. And it shows the kids care about mum and dad running a good business, and the kids found a way to help. Just wonderful little story about, opening yourselves up and listening to others. And children are honest, direct, and brutal.
We learn the most from them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, we did promise our listeners that we're going to be touching on building high-performing teams. So I'm going to switch our conversation to that because, running a team can be difficult as a business owner, especially bringing everyone on your journey towards your purpose. You are the business owner, you love what you do, but recruiting and then bringing people on that journey can be challenging. So we'll start off with the key factors or characteristics that perhaps differentiate high-performing teams from those average teams. Are there any characteristics, Steve, that you could say a high-performing team has this, an average team sits here?
Yeah, I've got a few things actually, just really around in my head. The first thing is lens, and lens meaning how we see the world. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we've got a respect of everyone's lens, right? Colour, creed, inclusion, diversity, whatever it is, their journey and how they see the world is completely and utterly different to me and everyone else. So at Northampton this year, so we're a League Two club. We got promoted. We did a great. It was about 6 months into the season. The weather was rubbish. We got the lads to create a 5-minute presentation on hero, heartbreak, and hardship. Sorry, hero, heartbreak, and highlight. So the 3 H's. So that was great for a little bit of team bonding. So yeah, just making sure that we understand the person behind the player. I also think we have to be really hot on language. So I said earlier, with alignment, we create clarity. Misalignment, we create chaos. and what is alignment, and having questions around alignment, having questions around the black, white, and the grey, which is similar. So I ask a lot of businesses, what are the black and whites and what are the greys? I think that's a great question to ask, Monday to Friday, what are black and white and what are grey, and what areas do you have? I think that's huge. And then really the final thing I'm going to do to tie that in is every business that I go in, I try and model it. Every conversation I have with Natalie Roger is between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. is always professional, never ever personal. And I need that in the bank with people, Natalie, straight away, because I don't need people going home going, oh, Steve Sallis said he don't like me. No, I said I didn't like that piece of work that you did. Right, and they're very, very different things. So making sure that we have cultural architects in the building, that when the boss isn't there, are these people saying, come on, professional, personal, come on, make sure we're aligned, come on, making sure we're listening. So I think that, the high performance stuff and the behavioural toolbox that I've got for businesses, I've got group dynamic stuff, but I've also got individual matrices as well. So when I talked about RAG ratings earlier, everyone's got an individual RAG rating, right? In terms of leadership, got like 35 concepts on there. So I've got that as a self-awareness tool. And then really the RAG rating's great because I could RAG rate you and you could RAG rate me, right? And then, we could RAG rate one another and then that looks at your blind spots. So anyway, that's a bit of a sort of a waffled answer. But just a few things. And again, when I'm going in, I don't always do it straight away. I'll just smell it and see if people want it, and meet people first. That's the first thing, isn't it? Just build connections, find out people's why, and making sure that I don't come across as, I don't know. Sometimes, you've got to be respectful of other people's lens, and just be mindful of that.
Natalie, I can remember a period in my career running a team and aspiring for high performance, and we were told we were a good team, we were producing great results and we were doing well, but that when the going got tough, we ran to our separate corners, and that the really high performing team kicks up a gear when the going gets tough. The market changes, something traumatic happens to the business, and that's when a team pulls together, they support each other. You have got something that's more important on your work program, and I can help by not doing one of the things on my list. So the priorities are shuffled, and that notion of support, I find very, very interesting, Steve, in a high performing team. It's I've had short periods with high performing teams. The boss has been out because of illness, and the team kicks up and does a great job. They don't want to let down a loved and trusted team member. So that collective element is a fascinating subject for me.
And it's going to go back to EQ. But it's going to go back to EQ again, isn't it? Because we, not me, our why, socialization. Are we bothered about how bothered are we about being rich? What's the point of being the richest man or woman in the graveyard? What's our legacy want to be? I just want to sit in that armchair when I'm 80 and go, did I do everything for the people that I served? And I call it the +1 effect, right? Do everything that you can, but then go again, right? But then when you've gone again, then go home. Do you know what I mean? Because the +1 effect, writing this in my new book, like, you've got to do more, but then you've also got to know when to wipe your feet and go home, haven't you? So I think that it's always going to go back, always, and I sound like a bloody broken record on a parrot, it's always going to go back to self-awareness and emotional intelligence, because, if you give love, you get love. You give hate, you get hate. It to me, to anyone I think with emotional intelligence, it isn't rocket science. It's law of attraction. I don't think it's a coincidence that my business has gone blown out of the water in 4 years. Hopefully, because I'm a nice bloke and I was brought up by my mum and dad properly. Do you know what I mean? And I've got mates that tell me the truth, and I can make fun of myself. And but remember, what I've got to respect is not everyone's like that, are they? Not everyone had a mum and dad like that, or even a mum or a dad. So we've got to be so respectful of the lens.
Steve, this is all really fascinating, and I always believe, when we look at, business owners can learn a lot from elite sports. If we use football, for example, I always admire, it's a team that's come from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. They come together with a common purpose. They want to win this game. When we talk about purpose in business, I believe it's really important to have a purpose to bring everyone on that journey. But how about building high-performing teams? Do you think purpose is also a factor that contributes to high-performing teams? We know, obviously, on the football field it does. What about it for business owners, whether you're an electrician, plumber,
Yeah,
builder?
I think, Natalie, it's a tough one to ask. It's a great question because I just think purpose comes from your heart, doesn't it? Who wants to be the downgrade teacher? Seriously, who wants to be the downgrade plumber? Like, that's just weird, isn't it? Like, we've got one life, yeah? We've got one life to smash it. And I'm so passionate about it. It's making me emotional because one life. We get one, gone, see you later. We're no one. So just go into world and just give love to everyone. Be kind, be respectful. Like, I learned something recently in business where someone said, they don't buy your product, they buy you. And I completely disagree because I think I've got a lot of good stuff to give you, with my business. But they said, no, but Steve, like, you're likable. And I go, how important is it being likable? And I thought, what a bloody good question. You're likable. What a good statement. And then I know likable's subjective, but I spend, like, I hope Paoli's not watching, right? Here we go. I'm going to share what I've just done in the last 24 hours. So this guy called Paoli, it's his 50th tomorrow. He's one of my best mates. He's like a brother to me. I'm 45, so he's 5 years older. We had a tutor group at the same time together 25 years ago. And I saw one of his ex-students from his tutor group down the gym 2 weeks ago. And I said, do me a favour. I said, try and get a video, right? And he better not be watching now because otherwise I'm going to give his present away. Try and get a video of all the kids in the tutor group, right? And they're when they're 38, they're 36 now, 37, these people. So then I've been on Facebook for like 2 days trying to find all the ex-pupils, trying to get videos, right, for my mate. So those are the types of things that I do just because I think it's right for you to help your mate out. And my missus said to me, she said, you do these things all the time for people. And I do it. Do you know what? Because I want to do it. It's not even a thing that, servant leadership. My job is to serve others and be kind to others. There's certain, what I have had to do, by the way, I will retract a bit. I have had to say no to certain things recently because my inbox, LinkedIn, I get 20 people asking me for favours every week. I reply to everyone, by the way. I leave a voice note. Don't even send an email. Just send a voice note. Say, look, thanks, but no thanks. So what I am learning is sometimes I do have to say no. But I just want people listening that if I say no to you, it's not on purpose. It's just because, I can't be a disciple for everyone.
Yeah, we've run through the importance of learning to say no, haven't we, Natalie? And how many people find that very hard. They usually feel better after it, though, when they've done it properly. Yeah,
it does break my heart, though, Roger, because, I've got youngsters who are finding out and, want my help. And I don't know, maybe I need to be, I'm having some business coaching at the moment, actually, just to, I have no business acumen at all, do I? So I'm just trying to scale my business and whatever and making sure that I'm going to be fresher. You're like this, Natalie and Roger. In football, we call it fitness and freshness. We're fit, but we're not always fresh. So, having had burnout a couple of times, I'm really mindful of me staying fresh. John Brady, I need to mention him. He's the manager of Northampton Town and he's an Aussie. Right? I mean, what a human being he is, by the way. He's like, I call him my brother from my mother. But he's had real success in England in football coaching and just truly aligned with me in terms of how we treat people. We're slightly different. I think we're different because my school experiences made me probably a little bit softer. He won't mind me saying that. But actually, I think we're good for each other because you can't always be soft in pro football because otherwise you get eaten alive.
And what about communication, Steve? When we're talking about building high-performing teams, we know communication obviously is an important one. We've discussed listening before, but now we talk about communication. Are there any techniques that you can share that perhaps our business owners can adapt in their roles as a leader to actually create high-performing teams, but with communication in mind? Because sometimes, I guess, you're an electrician and you're working crazy long hours. You often forget that, you have the team, they're busy doing their things, but those check-ins, the communication, it's often just pushed to the side. Do you have any advice about that?
Well, I'm the son of a plumber, so having seen my dad on building sites and making sure that the foreman on the building site was their alignment, between what you actually want and what I'm hearing, what I say and what you hear, and what I say and how I say things. So I think, that alignment that's key. I'm going to touch on literacy as well, linking to communication. So literacy has 5 meanings, Natalie, which is speaking, listening, reading, writing, and communication. So I think we have to have almost aligned language. I don't want everyone to be a parrot, but it makes me feel pretty good that when I'm hearing alignment and misalignment, when I'm hearing black, white, and grey, when I'm hearing there's no failure, there's only feedback, and I'm hearing what's more important, prove yourself or improve yourself, and all of these methods that I've got, character, calibre, and I'm hearing that when I go into offices, that makes me really damn proud that, because language is so complex, isn't it? The meaning of a word, the perception of a word is so different for so many people. So going back, I'm bringing communication back all the way back to words. Like, unless we have alignment of what those words actually mean, it is very unlikely a family or a business or a football club is going to be successful. Because even with high literacy, Roger's perception of a word could genuinely be different to mine. So yeah, communication. If listen, my work, I'm not a plaster. I work with companies for 12 to 24 months, and I tell them that. I said, if you want a plaster, I'm not your man. So we do sessions on language, the language that's used in this building specifically for a recruitment company, and do we all have the same meaning of that word? So yeah, I think I don't want to talk about communication because I think it's before that about the meaning of language.
And what about then another big one, when people talk about high performing teams, they think that, there's never any conflicts. They all get along. We know that's far from true. We're going to deal with conflicts wherever we go. Do you have any advice for actually dealing with conflicts in teams? Because regardless of what a great business owner you are or a leader, you will come across conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably a pretty good guy to deal with conflict because I dealt with it in schools for years. The first one is the Batari box. Great little educational psychology nugget. Don't let someone's attitude and behaviour affect your attitude and your behaviour, and their attitude affects their. Kid comes into class with a bad attitude, and the teacher mirrors it. That's a classic. And then you find yourself, I'm laughing myself here, like I say like all these theoretical concepts, but just trust me, everyone, I don't always get them right, because I get them wrong. But when you find yourself, why am I having an argument with a 14-year-old? They've sucked me in with their attitude and their behaviour, and that's affected my attitude and my behaviour. So, I say mirror positive, don't mirror negative. That's what I say. Mirroring positive behaviour, not mirror negative. That's an art form. And then around the conflict, there's a guy called Bruce Tuckman that talks about forming, norming, and performing, right? Where groups form, okay? And then traditionally 6 weeks, 6 months, there's a little bit of conflict, a bit of ego gets in the way, and there's a storm, storm cloud. But I have to say this, just to finish this off neatly, the high-performing teams, and me and Natalie, here we go, Dave Livermore is the assistant manager at Gillingham. We worked together at Millwall. We used to have ding-dongs every single day and disagree about everything, but he's my best mate in football, right? Because everything was professional, not personal, right? And his EQ was so high that he didn't drive in the car and go, oh, Steve Sallis disagrees with me, that means he's an idiot. We just challenged the hell out of each other, and we stormed, but we didn't norm. So the third part is normalise. But some people hold grudges for like 6 months, don't they? Like 6 years. So that goes back to EQ again, doesn't it? Because if you've got high EQ, you don't hold a grudge. And it goes back to teaching again, because I can't hold a grudge with a 14-year-old. Otherwise, I'm a downgrade teacher. The great teachers don't hold grudges. The kids will tell you to F off, and then the best teacher's got to reset. Because I'm not in a rude way. I'm a teacher with a degree, and you're a child. So that's my job.
Yeah.
And I also think that there's a bit of, in leadership where there's an avoidance of conflict. Like people are afraid of conflict. So they'd rather just turn the other way. where, you know, it seems like you deal with it head on every single day, and it's healthy to do that. And I think business owners need to be aware that it is okay to deal with conflict. It's normal. You will, regardless. It doesn't mean you're running an average team. You could be running a high performing team, but this conflict exists and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Roger, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I think as businesses get bigger and bigger, the leaders tend to, unfortunately, spend more time on the problems and challenges in the business and how to make positive change than they do on the opportunities and the really, you know, energizing things. So finding ways to stay upbeat when you're navigating challenges in the business, I think is very important. It comes back to the mindset. What I have had to do, just my technique is if I'm doing a restructure or reorganizing or doing some heavy lifting, I've always made myself visit a customer every week or every month, because those are great moments. So I find the mechanism. I'm doing hard work. This is complex, but that's what I've got to do. I need the release. I have to go and get a shot in the arm of talking to a customer who tells me we're doing a great job. Just try and improve here or there, and then go back to the hard grind. So yeah, everybody has to find a technique, I think, to handle the hard stuff.
And I think the conflict thing, I think we have to be truly empathetic about the lens again, right? I was brought up in a white British family, the dad of a builder, where we were brought up just saying it how it is. Now that's my lens, right? So I know that that's not everyone else's lens, right? And I'm really mindful of that. So actually, have you noticed my voice just changed now? Because I'm like really trying to be authentic here, because I'm saying, like, I mean, it's a very delicate issue in the world of work. And I think that, I'll give you an example. I think I'm probably a little bit marmite when people first meet me, because I'm quite just to the point. But when people see the softness to me and the genuine love and the loyalty I have for people, you know, I think a lot of my relationships with some of the best people I've worked with, people probably couldn't work me out early. Do you know what I mean? They probably didn't work me out because I'm quite straight to the point. But if you get underneath that, it's not even a facade. It's just get shit done. You know, like just get jobs done. I'm there to work. I'm not there to get results. I'm just there to work. But when you understand that, you know, because I've had conflict in the workplace, and we all have, but there's also a big element of to say, look, the words I'm sorry. And I'll tell you the one thing, I've always said the words I'm sorry in my relationships, my friendships, my family, at work. So I think that that's a powerful, you know, we're talking about all the complexities of the world of work, but to say I'm sorry, I mean, we haven't brought that up at all today, but that's power, because you got to acknowledge when you're wrong, right? So, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm reflecting on the question. I think conflict is something that we've all got to be really respectful of people's backgrounds and how it relates to them, because some people, Natalie, bury their head in the sand because they haven't got the literacy and the emotional literacy. They bury their head in the sand because from childhood, conflict to them was huge trauma, Natalie. Mm-hmm. Right? So unless we are truly kind about that topic, I think that we're just, oh yeah, they're all right, deal with it behaviour. No, that's not where we're at. Like, so yeah, you know, great point, but I think we could probably talk about that for hours and still come up with the same answers around respecting the lens.
Yeah, I just love what you said there about how powerful the words "I'm sorry" are, because they really are. You know, we make mistakes and we do things, but just saying something simple like that, not only is it good for your own mindset if you were the one that was in the wrong, but it's also on the receiving end. So I think
the importance of how you say it, you know, the tone of voice and the sincerity, because a fast, flippant sorry doesn't cut it, does it?
I don't think it helps, Roger.
Definitely. And I'm actually looking at the time. Roger, we've got many more questions to ask you, Steve, but we're actually running out of time. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Roger, to try and wrap up this wonderful segment.
I'll do my best. As ever, it's gone super fast, Steve, which is a good sign of, I think, having had a meaningful conversation and an interesting conversation. and we've had some fun along the way. So thank you for your time over the last 56-7 minutes or so. So Steve Sallis, the executive mindset coach who works on creating or helping businesses become high-performing teams. He's the obsessive golfer, a nervous flyer, so there's a little bit of work to do there. But this ex-pro footballer and experienced school teacher who now finds himself giving back to businesses and to leaders to help them improve how they operate in the workplace. It's all about solutions, and the mindset is what helps drive solutions in the workplace. And I love this notion of the super strengths. It boils down to that, character versus caliber, and how you rate yourself and rank yourself on the things that are important as a leader. We've spoken a lot about EQ. That's emotional intelligence. There's lots of stuff that we can read about on that. And the importance of self-awareness. It's a constant theme through the last hour. I love the term looking in the mirror. When things aren't going as you want, look in the mirror. Often you will have a role to play in how things are or not performing in your business. And the model behavior, how you as a leader behave, talk, act, react, etc., is absolutely critical, because people do copy the leader and they'll get away with poor behavior if the leader exhibits poor behavior. This notion of act, interact, and react, these are the characteristics that we all need to be aware of within our own sort of self-awareness. I love this notion of true alignment is through excellent listening. It's not about follow me, do this, do that. It's listening and coalescing into a way forward. And, mindset is common sense, Steve said. So that's the common sense is a grounder. It comes to I think the recurring theme of being humble in whatever we do. I do think that hanging on to some of the discussion points around education and how it can help all of us improve how we operate. We are in control of our own futures. It can be fearful, as Steve said, to kick into reading and self-improving through, understanding what experts have to say on a particular matter. Saying sorry, we touched on at the end, but that is also something that's difficult to do and something that we all need to practice. And again, one of the standouts for me is this notion of the lens. It links into diversity in the workplace and how we must all have respect for each other, their thoughts, how they perceive a phrase, a word, or an action or a plan. And, I've written down lots here, Steve. I'm going to have to buy your book, so you'll have to remind us what the book title is at the end. But, this hero heartbreak highlights people opening up, sharing their own stories can really help a team develop this understanding of each other. In a football team, there's 11 players, probably 5 on the bench. There are dozens of different relationships. And so how we open up and share our own stories is an important part of the mix. Being respectful, acting with purpose. We only have one life, as Steve says, one of the things that I've written down and circled. And, be kind, be respectful, and be very mindful of the language that we use, the words that we use. And so we can remain positive and not focus on the negative things. So, Steve, wonderful to talk with you. I'll put my hand up to be your business coach if you want. And, lots that we've learned from, but maybe, Natalie, do we have the book title to share with people?
Yes, please. That's what my notes, Steve. If you could please tell us the name of your book and where our audience can go to purchase the book.
Yeah, firstly, I have to say, Roger, your synopsis at the end was unbelievable, by the way. How you've managed to articulate all of that whilst listening and speaking and in the conversation is unreal.
Good listening skills. I'm trying.
Phenomenal. So, I'm going to end with a little one-liner and then I'm going to tell you about the book. Just remember, everyone knows more than someone, right? So that's how really high-performing teams work. My book, I'm an absolute lunatic. I don't sell my book on Amazon. Do you know why? Because I've sold 8,000 books and I sell every book and I sign every book. So you can get my book, Educating Football, from my website, solutionsmindset.com. I am going to mention my new book that's coming out, right? My new book that's coming out is going to be out this year. I think it's going to be called, controversially, how not to be a leadership dickhead. Don't laugh at that, right? But it's 25 years of my hard-earned research and work of all the dysfunctional people. And I'm just going to end on the gossip gurus. There's a little topic called the toxic torpedoes and the gossip gurus. Just please don't be that person at work that gossips, because that is just not high performance, right? So just high EQ, don't be the gossip, and just, I call it the poo or the glue. Are you the poo or are you the glue? So everyone, just be the glue, yeah? All right, come on.
Wonderful.
Steve, with a book title like that, I think it is going to fly off the shelves.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's fantastic. Look, it's been
Thanks,
an absolute pleasure, Steve. I've learned a lot. I'm sure, Roger, you've learned a lot, and I have no doubt our audience has as well. So as Steve said, solutionsmindset.com is where everyone can go to for more information. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.